Yeah, what's up, everybody? This is Case Study QB, and we are the political junkies back at it again. I got my man David, Day, and Big Pun is in the building. Yes, what's going on? We're going to get right to it, but just to let everybody know ahead of time, we are taking a break in October, and that's my birthday month. So we're going to the whole month, but we're going to come back right in time for the midterms, right? November, the first Tuesday of the month. I think that Monday, we're going to try to come back and do some predictions. We're going to see what the latest news is at that time and go from there. But I feel weird if I don't ask y'all how y'all doing. Let catch the people up. David, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well. I just got back from being out of town. I officiated a wedding this weekend, so that was a lot of fun. So yeah, it was great.
Nice day.
I'm doing very well. I went out last night to DC to see the Little Nas X concert. So
okay,
weekend, yeah,
the eventful weekend. Big Pun.
Still feeling no, mine wasn't that exciting, but I had a good time. It was good stuff. Yeah, just
cool. Yeah. And I'll give a shout out to PJ Holly in the building. Much love to you. So let's go straight to this. I didn't even plan for this. I just saw this clip, and I thought this would be interesting to just mention real quick of event going on right now. All right, so let's start it over. Boom.
Somebody said, "Do the right thing." Do the right thing. Do the right thing. Because if there's anything that we can do to make change, it's prayer.
If you have a lack of heart, it doesn't matter how many buildings you put up. Right. The abuses will matter. All lives can't matter until prison lives matter. All lives can't matter until prison lives matter. Freedom. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Freedom. I can't hear you.
All right, so I'm not gonna play the whole thing, but basically this is a prison strike going on right here, and I'm gonna show you the food that there was retaliation from the guards, and I'm gonna show this real quick. Oh man, this does not look good at all. Let me see if I can zoom in. Boom. Ew.
Yeah. Is that peanut butter?
Let me see.
What is that? That was bad.
I don't know. Let me see what they said. Yeah. They didn't describe what it is. This might be peanut butter over here.
I think this some bread applesauce.
Maybe that's applesauce. I'm gonna guess, but Lord have mercy. I don't know how anybody.
Diet?
Yeah. So it's really, being an abolitionist and abolishing not only the police but prisons is becoming more and more popular. I know me personally, I have to read some books. I saw some books on the topic, so I want to educate myself more on it. I'm always open to anything. I want to hear an argument, me personally, how I operate. I want to hear an argument on both sides, and then I'll decide where I will land. And I'm very open to hearing the argument for abolishing the police, for abolishing prisons completely. Not even like a Finland version of prison where you're pretty much in like a New York City apartment where it's not with the IKEA of furniture and you get a PlayStation, it's not even that, which, would be, I think we need to rehabilitate prisoners. So to have them be treated normally I think that's a good way to go, right? You would think. But they're talking about completely abolishing prison. So I would love to see what that world look like. So let me throw it to the panel. I don't know if you have anything to say about that.
I would say that for people interested, there is a book that I read recently, David, called "Becoming Abolitionist: Police Protests and the Pursuit of Freedom" by Derica Purnell. Definitely just a good place to start. But I would say that for me, I'm still in transition, just kind of figuring out what I want the prison system to look at. But I can definitely say that our punitive system and our profit-driven system are not helping the issue. Our recidivism rate is so high because it's designed not to rehab people and to make them better. It's to just simply punish them, and then hopefully they get out and come back in because that's more profit. So I want to get to a place where even if you don't agree with, I always say this, human lives matter. Even when they do things we don't agree with, there still should be a basis of human dignity. And I'm not saying have them eat filet mignon, but like you can't be feeding them garbage. Like that's lower than the floor. I don't do that.
Yeah, I remember when even Dulcimer, the lawyer that was helping out the Chevron, I think I forgot what country he was in, but Chevron had a big oil spill, and he was talking about his prison experience and how he just lost a ton of weight. He lost a ton of weight. They wasn't giving him healthy food. He literally did not eat like a salad or a vegetable until he got out of prison. Like that's just unthinkable to me. Even as somebody that eats a lot of junk food and I'm trying to eat healthier, to say I can't eat. Even today I had carrots and celery with my Wingstop. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. All right. Let's go to David next. What you got to say about this topic, buddy?
I think that we should start with the abolishing the private prisons first.
Yeah. Okay.
When we think about like the law of supply and demand, and then like an over policing just in order to fill up our prisons, and then how there's certain parameters written into these various agreements with state, local, and federal governments and private prisons about like have to be at a certain percentage of like capacity, and if they fall below that, these governments have to pay these for-profit companies even more money. So I think that's where we should at least start, is by abolishing private prisons to begin with. I would love to go even further. I was like, I don't think that that incarcerating people addresses the root issues of why people commit quote unquote crime. Crime is really just, I think, the word that we use to describe something that we don't like. And so, yeah, so if we were addressing housing and homelessness, economic inequality, I think that would address a lot of these issues.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It was Steven Donziger, and it was in Ecuador where they had the oil spill. I mean, it was just, his story was just so crazy and a great example of how capitalism can really be predatory in the way of just taking over a government, because they like pretty much had a judge paid off, and he said it never happened in history how they went after him as a lawyer, that he won the settlement too. That's the other thing, he won, and I'm still pretty sure they haven't paid a dime to this day. They probably
Crazy.
Yeah. All right, so let's go to this first clip that I just saw. Actually, Jimmy Dore gave me a shout out. I was just catching him, and our guy Kit, who was on the show last week as well. He's on literally. I don't know if he's off of the show also, but they were both on the show on Jimmy Dore. Kit was on Jimmy Dore's show, and they played this clip. So I'm gonna play it right now. Boom. All right.
Speaking of broadcast on television, there's a it's in your Wikipedia, but there's a piece of your, just this weekend, the New York Times released this report on civilian casualties in Iraq, basically, and how they've been wildly underreported, which we can kind of always assume, really, when it comes to war in other countries, be Iraq, Afghanistan, or Yemen. But in 1991, you had a situation where you actually had footage about civilian casualties in the first Gulf War, right? And you were let go. You were fired from NBC, I think it was, and then later it was supposed to air on CBS, and the people who wanted to air it on CBS were fired. Is that true?
So, unfortunately, that's sadly true. We had to defy the Iraqi restrictions. When we got to Iraq in the middle of the war, it was obvious that this was not the bloodless war that was being shown to us on American television. Back in those days, the generals would go on TV and they would show the cameras from the jet planes hitting bridges, and one of the reporters asked if there were any planes that missed the target. 100% accuracy. And they also asked them about civilian deaths and collateral damage. And our military claimed that this was a bloodless war. And I don't know whether you guys have been to wars, but I've been to a lot of wars, and there's no such thing. And it's very, very important that the American people understand what happens when we apply our military power around the world. We have to know this, because we're a big, strong, and potentially dangerous nation. And so, in the middle of the war, I went to Iraq. And when you arrive in Iraq, you're presented with 3 pages of restrictions that you're supposed to follow. Can't turn your camera on, can't turn it off without permission. I mean, it just went on and on. And instead of this single babysitter, we got 2 or 3 babysitters, because they were really scared of me, because they knew that I'd had a lot of experience in war zones and I might trick them, and trick them we did. And within 2 or 3 days, we broke every single one of those restrictions. We filmed what was really going on. It was a war, and people were dying. And I snuck those tapes out of the country in my sock and brought them back to the United States. And NBC was very excited. And this was going to be the lead story on NBC News, and it was going to be the first real truth from the battlefield. And 2 hours before the broadcast, I was summoned into the office of the NBC president, and he said, "We're not going to show your tape, and you're never going to work here again," and fired me. And then I went to CBS. CBS watched this material and said, "This is astonishing. People need to know about this. We're going to broadcast this. Thank you for bringing this to us." 2 o'clock in the morning, he got a phone call. He was fired. And everybody in television knew that you better not go near this footage. So we don't kill people in the United States like they do in other countries. But
has anyone seen this footage? Has this footage ever come out anywhere?
It was a big deal in Europe and in other places. Not here in the United States, the one country that really needed to see this because we were the ones who were prosecuting the war. And it was shown on PBS. Bill Moyer showed it in sort of as a hand-wringing expose of how the American press let us down during that war.
All right. There we go. So I thought that was a very interesting clip. That basically this is a documentarian that I came across when I watched this Netflix show, Cuba and the Cameraman, which I recommend everybody go and watch that. It happened over a span of 45 years where he went to Cuba before the Berlin Wall fell, and they were getting subsidized Cuba by Russia $8 million a day. So they went from having a flourishing economy, the stores had products, and then after the Berlin Wall fell, and of course the sanctions from America preventing trade with Cuba, etc., they didn't get the $8 million subsidy. You just see the country totally transform into stores that were bare, and they just had to make do with what they had. I see Big Pun, you shaking head. You watched it as well?
Yeah, so back 2018, I went on a trip to Cuba. And
okay.
And before I went, I tried to go ahead and expose myself to as much stuff as I could, and that was one of the documentaries that I saw, and it's excellent. It's excellent.
Yeah,
and
it was.
If you ever get a chance, go to Cuba. It's a beautiful place. Savannah's beautiful. But yeah, it's interesting that you know this, and you may know this yourself. I mean, the media. It's for profit, just like the prisons. Okay, so they're going to go ahead and look out for their bottom line, and they're going to go ahead and it does not shock me that there's a bunch of stuff that we did not see. This goes back all the way back to whatever any war you want to go ahead and think about, but most definitely the Vietnam War, where they went ahead and tried to control every image that came across the television, right, and wanted to show you their Vietnam. And why we're over there to justify everything. So this does not shock me that they don't want to show you the stuff that's bloodless, So, but it's amazing censorship, you know what I'm saying, in that respect, and it sucks, but it does exist. I'm almost 100% sure of it. Sad.
Kay said it was amazing, so that's cool. Go ahead, David. What you thought about what was you watched?
I haven't seen it. I think you were going to go to Day instead, actually.
Oh, I apologize. Yeah, I was totally apologize. And matter of fact, before I do that, I want to give a shout out to Brooke. So, Brooke, what's going on, buddy?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you right now. And I don't know if you're going to join us on screen, or if not, that's fine. Also, if not.
So I've been prepping for the hurricane all day, and I totally forgot about the stream. So
okay, no worries.
If I could go avatar only, that'd be great.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. So I'm just going over a clip. We're going to finish this segment, and then I'm going to go to you. We want to talk about the campaign that you recently was on, and we'll go from there. Okay, so I'm going to go to Day.
Yeah, so for me, I look forward to watching the documentary probably tomorrow. But what I found really interesting was how the propaganda presented to the American people about the war has so many parallels to what we are now in the American media critiquing about Russia, and how they're presenting the Ukrainian situation to their people in terms of blocking things that are actually more honest and truthful, like the dissent, and over-representing the people who are very hawkish. And I find it interesting that when Americans, oftentimes our media will accurately critique other people while being completely blind to our own faults and our own issues when it comes to our bias in the media. And so I think things like this, hearing little insights like this, are very important, because to hear that this was happening so long ago, but still happening today without much change, is fascinating. I think if it wasn't for things like the internet or independent media, just imagine how little, how uninformed we would be as a nation.
Yeah, 100%. So now that we got our guests in the building, I'm gonna bring you up on stage, and please tell us about yourself, and then we'll talk about the Alan Grayson as much as you can, about the campaign.
Well, my name is Brooke Hines, and I've been doing political campaigns now for about 10 years. And before that, I was in marketing for quite some time. So I kind of come at this from a marketing perspective. And when I work with Alan, that's usually how we work. Like, I'm not so much of a data and numbers person. I'm more of a creative person. And so we put together a team around that. Like, and when I work on any campaigns, that's how I work.
Awesome. So just let the audience know that this is not the first time that you've been on my channel. You know, I've gotten a lot of great advice from you. Matter of fact, before we started the show, I was talking to David and Day about you talking to me about Wallstone and his method of running for office. And I actually found a book, and I wonder if it was the exact same book that you introduced me to. But basically, I was halfway through the book, and I'm recommending it to other people who are planning to run for office as a progressive. And can you just tell us a little bit about that, if you don't mind?
Well, Paul Wellstone was like if you think that Bernie Sanders was awesome, Paul Wellstone was all that and a pogo stick. Like he was just amazing. When I first started watching C-SPAN, it was to see his floor speeches because he was just so good. And so he had the Wellstone Institute, and they did a book, and you could go, and you still can. There's still workshops that teach the techniques by the book, and it's pretty much. Everybody that I know pretty much had that somewhere in their early training, in their early political training. And then, there's been a lot of different techniques and ways of thinking about things that have come along since Wellstone. But Wellstone's a great foundation for anyone.
Yeah, that's exactly how I described it, actually, to David and Dave, that it's a good foundation. And then since then, we have the internet, we have Twitter, we have all these new technologies that you got to kind of plug and play the strategy that you learn from him and kind of play with it and bring it up to the 21st century. So I want to talk to you about Alan Grayson's campaign. So first he started to run as a senator, right? And then I don't know exactly what happened, but he decided to run for the House. Can you give us some insight on that first one?
I can. So
okay.
I think that he was looking to run in a House race the whole time. That's my assumption. And he got in the Senate race because that's a good place before we had reapportionment this year. So that's the important thing to know. And Central Florida was slated to get a new district, which we did. And that was announced, I don't know, early this year. And that's when he switched over, but he waited a little while. And I'll tell you, if you want some real insight into the race,
give it to us.
It is that weight that, was I was what do you call it? nudging him. That's the nice way of saying it. I was nudging him for quite some time. I'm like, you got to announce, you got to jump into this sooner. And he's like, no, I want to wait. He's afraid of the conservative money, and especially AIPAC will go after him.
Can I be clear? I just want to ask real quick to be clear. You was nudging him to jump into the race for Senate or to transfer from the Senate to the House?
To transfer from the Senate to the House.
Okay, continue.
So, and another piece that is important to understand too is that Val Demings, who is the former representative from District 10, which is the district, the redrawn district that he was running on for the House, Val Demings has a history of jumping in a race and jumping out of a race. So he wasn't, nobody was completely sure if she was going to stay in that Senate race through the whole, to see it through the whole thing. And so there was some back and forth. And I figured that it was evident that she was going to stay in the race a lot sooner than he thought. Let's put it that way. And but she's going to see that to the end, and she's kind of hopped from one foot to the other before, and so there was a lot of speculation about that.
Okay, interesting. All right, so tell us how did unfortunately Alan Grayson wasn't successful. Can you tell us some lessons learned and some insight on how that race went?
Yes. Lesson number one learned is to get in soon. If you wait to the last minute to get in, and he had a strategy and he wanted to execute that strategy, and I get that. I mean, we had many discussions about it, but what he gave up by getting in late was the endorsement races, because endorsement races occur way sooner than that last call. There's the last day to get into a race to declare was, I think, in the end of May or the beginning of June. Now, most of those endorsement races occurred in March. You know, you had to start talking to people in March, February to network and to, it's more than just endorsements. It's networking to get support in the community. And the way that Alan ran this race was he tried to do this completely as a marketing kind of campaign. And marketing, it will work for a lot. I think it's going to work better in a general election than a primary election. In a primary election, it is so important to have your networking down and to have that community support, because the people who are voting in a primary are part of that network. They're very not educated, that's not the right word, high information voters. It's hard to vote in a primary in Florida. We have close primaries, and the voting date is always the end of August, and people are just getting back to school, and like UCF got back into school the weekend before the election date, just for an example. So it was impossible to do this all through marketing and all through, you know, the usual channels that kind of are everything except for that community support. And now part of and so I think that begs the question, probably not the right way to say it, that's probably not the right word, but this year was a rough year for Alan. His house burned down, and he had all 5 of his kids at home. The house caught fire at 11:30 at night. They lost everything. And so he still kept one foot in, you know, his law firm, doing his law firm, and then one foot in trying to keep all of the family together. And he had to let some things go. And part of that, I think, was, you know, he was slow to get in the race, and he made a decision not to do endorsement races. Bad thing. Everybody do endorsement races. Just network. Just get all your beds out there. Make sure you find your people. Get your canvas together, and you know, get your volunteers on your side first, not last.
Yeah, definitely. I was talking to my guys earlier, and I was saying definitely if you plan to run for office, and it is a 2-3 year plan, you want to get to know the progressive groups in your area, so you can kind of build a base, an automatic base. When you do declare, you have initial base of volunteers before then going out wide and getting more support. With that said, so Maxwell Frost is a progressive that won. Did you see him, and did you see right away, like, wow, this guy's going to be good, he's going to be a good challenger, we need to, you know, pick our game up? Or did you see him coming at all?
So what I saw was the community getting behind him, and not just like the local community, but the community of funders, the people who are, you know, high interest in these kinds of races, and, you know, people with organizations. And that's where it really comes into play. There was 3 people who were vying in this race, and Maxwell Frost, Alan Grayson, and Randolph Bracey. And Randolph Bracey is a state senator, loved in the community. He's the son of a pastor who is, you know, amazing, that everybody loves. So, I mean, these are 3 great candidates. You're not going to lose with any one of these candidates. They're all different flavors of the same, you know, they're all ice cream, they're just different flavors. I will say this, the Alan Grayson as an ice cream flavor is, you know, like Spumoni or something. He's one of the more complex. Okay. He's got more going on than some other candidates. But 3 good candidates, you can't lose. Maxwell Frost ran a totally by the book campaign, had a lot of money from the from one funder in particular, who was a crypto guy. And you know, one of the things that I noticed right away was their media buys were buying the most expensive media at the most expensive time in the least efficient way through the whole thing. And it was because they had that money to spend.
And this was
and
Maxwell?
That's what I mean about, this is Maxwell Frost.
Okay.
And that's what I mean about like community of funders. When you have a funder like that who throws $1 million at you before you start, and then $1 million in the last couple of weeks for a little house race, that's a big deal, because what that meant was he had television advertising on during all of the local news shows on broadcast television, which is like, that is the most expensive media buys that you could ever buy. Like, that's always going to be, you know, a challenge for a smaller race to do that. And we threw a lot of money at television and cut a couple of ads, but couldn't compete with the placements that he was doing.
Gotcha. Okay, we got 2 questions, and then we're going to move on to some more clips. So the first person up is Day.
Hey, hi, Brooke. Nice to meet you. I did have a quick question for you. So I like the fact that you said you come from a marketing degree, so you see things from more of a creative angle compared to like a data-driven angle. And I was just curious, given, you know, however you follow different progressive campaigns, what do you think is one of the core things that are missing from a lot of the campaigns being run by progressives today?
Oh, wow. One of the core things, and I think that's something that progressives could do better with, especially small campaigns, is figure out a way to get direct mail out. And this direct mail can be very difficult for small campaigns if you don't have a vendor that you can work with. And that's kind of how I built my business, is that I know direct mail from starting the creative, from having the first conversation, through getting it printed, and then getting it through the mail house. So what you will find, what candidates often find when they start running campaigns, is that the party and those people that you're networking with, the funder network, they will suggest direct mail people that are horrendously expensive. Like, I'm talking, direct mail starting at $1 a piece, a buck per postcard that's going to hit a mailbox. And my whole thing is, like, a campaign can't do that. They got to cut that in half. You got to be looking at 50 cents a piece, 47 cents a piece, and then you're starting to be efficient with it. So that's kind of my just, sharp elbowed, squinty eyed, that you got to get these things done, get them done efficiently, and get them done in a way that you can afford. And that's always a challenge for new campaigns. And the reason why it's so important, especially in like Florida, is that we don't have walking neighborhoods really, where, like, it's not like Brooklyn or the Bronx, where there's clusters of people that are all together. We're spread out and very suburban and that. And so in a race like this, or a race that has a lot of rural attributes, you're going to always need direct mail. And the other thing I would say, because I think this is a big question, it's so important, such a good question. The other thing I would say is you want your branding to get your branding done quickly and in the beginning, and love it, just embrace it, just love what you got. You get it done to the point where you absolutely love it. And you've got a couple of, buckets of assets. You've got your photography, and you've got your logos in all different formats. And then different, when I say assets, other kinds of assets are like flourishes or gestures, or ways that you say things. You got to build this palette out in the beginning, and then be a little flexible with it, because it's all going to evolve. And I know one thing that I see young people starting out in campaigns, one thing I see them doing is being very, and it's understandable, being very territorial about branding, and kind of policing the branding. And what you want to do instead is be a little more flexible and let your branding fit the use, the what you're using it for. So if you need to change something up, what the hell, change it up.
The moral of the story is, if you're running as a progressive, hire Brooke. That's basically it. David got the last question.
Yes, Brooke, I'm over here frantically taking notes. This is great. I'm really interested in local politics, and I live out in Colorado. I live in Denver, and in the upcoming, like in May, the upcoming mayor and city council race. This will be the first election that the city is doing public funding of elections, which I think is really exciting. So once you secure 250 small dollar donations, somewhere between $5 and $50, from within the city and county of Denver, they're matched 9-1 by this election fund. So once they reach that threshold, and if someone contributes $5, then this would be in $45 for a $50 contribution. So, which I think is awesome. And I think it's a great means test that could maybe be scaled up. So all of that being said, I'm thinking about local levers that are supporting funding, but in order to get there, you need that network of support. And I know that Case mentioned around finding progressive groups in your area, and you mentioned direct mail and branding and all that stuff. But I was wondering if you could maybe talk a little bit more about maybe where to go to network, maybe where to go to get volunteers, just kind of how to establish more kind of that political community.
That is a great question. So everybody usually starts out at the your county Democratic Executive Committee, the DEC meeting is what they're called here, and they meet once a month, and that is like ground zero. But that's just dipping your toe in. Like when you go to DEC meetings or your county meetings, you want to there and sign up to talk and make sure that you introduce yourself and have a good like little just 2-minute elevator pitch that you're ready to give at a moment's notice. See if you can. This is kind of advanced DEC networking, and it doesn't work if you don't drink. But go hang out with people after the meeting. Go hang out with people in social situations that are not in the box, you know, because that's where you really know, you get to know people that way, and you get to learn things that you don't learn at meetings. And the other thing you learn from doing that too is, you know, people can introduce you to other people. So the next stop is to introduce yourself to any unions in town, any progressive groups in town, the DSA, if there's a DSA chapter, and the usual funding sources. There's a couple of, I'm only thinking of the ones for women's races right now, like Emily's List and that kind of thing. But there are funder lists. There's also a group called the Democracy Alliance, or it used to be called Democracy Alliance, which are the big boy funders. But they get down on the state level and the municipal level from time to time. You just got to find the right person to make that introduction for you. So when I talk about networking, I always think about, I did music business stuff for a real long time, working with bands in Nashville. And one of the funniest things, one of the most true things if anyone has ever said to me when we're just starting out with this one band was this great club owner, and I wish I could remember his name and the name of the club, but he said, "My advice to you is to network and don't suck." And we were like, that blew our minds. We were like,
yeah,
oh my God, okay.
Okay.
And,
cool.
And so the thing is, I think as progressives, we don't suck. You know, as progressives, we got something to offer people, and the people just need to hear your message, and so get out in front as many as you can.
Awesome.
Thank you, Brooke. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for your insight. You got a little lesson out there on some cues on if you're running for office. And this is something that I love to go in deeper. I haven't done a progressive war room in a while, but definitely I know, Brooke, I believe you were on one of those, and that's where we get into the nitty gritty of all these little details of how to run. And what an excellent resource on running for office. So definitely where they can find you. Twitter, is that the best way to reach out to you, Brooke?
Twitter is totally the best way. I have a bad Twitter addiction, and so if you DM me on Twitter, you will find me.
Awesome.
On Twitter, I am at Nashville_Brooke.
There it is, and it should be also in this YouTube description. I put your Twitter handle there as well. So thank you so much, Brooke. We're going to get back to the clips now. This is kind of like a popish / politics. And I didn't talk to you guys about, and everyone about this topic. And I'm very curious to see if we're going to have an impromptu no calzone, which basically means like we might debate on this topic. So let me play the video first and then we'll get into it. All right.
So a lot of people are surprised that has agreed to do this. In 2019, she told Vogue magazine, as you mentioned before the break, that she didn't want to be seen as a sellout, as an enabler. She didn't agree with a lot of what the NFL was doing and some of their practices. But what changed? Well, she's a member of Jay-Z's Rock Nation, and Rock Nation is one of the executive producers of this halftime show, as they were last year when, you had Dr. Dre, you had Snoop Dogg, Mary J. Blige, Kendrick Lamar performing. Rock Nation co-executive produced that halftime performance as well. So that is the pivotal change here. So a lot of people are surprised that Rihanna has.
All right, so here is the no count zone question: is Rihanna a sellout?
No.
Did she sell out? Okay, I'm gonna give the floor to Dave first. Let's get into it.
Okay.
Bias on the table. I am a huge Rihanna fan, so take everything I say with a grain of salt in that case. I actually think in when she was originally asked, I think the fact that anyone could say no, I feel like she was one of the first to be vocal about declining to do a Super Bowl, which is a big deal financially. And so I think that I feel like the Rock Nation component is a little unfair because if I'm not mistaken, around that time Jay-Z was still in negotiation. Was somebody trying to convince her to do it and she still bucked it and said no. I think now, given that there was, Colin had his whole situation where, I think he was like in training or something. So there have been some changes that we've seen come out. Of course, it's not everything that we want. Rihanna is a situation where she's been very vocal about things that she disagrees with. And I think at this point, it probably would make more sense given that I'm sure there's some certain concessions that she wanted, as well as the fact that, yes, like Jay-Z is involved in a different way and Apple Music is taking over. So it was like, there's different things that I think have just the culture and climate of the situation has changed in a way that I think makes it make sense for her to perform, especially after seeing how black it was. I mean, for lack of better words, how black it was last year.
Yeah.
And how like people were still even, they didn't want them doing certain things. And so they found creative ways to buck the system. And I'd be curious to see if she's going to do anything like that herself to make any statements, but I am biased. I just love Rihanna and I'm excited for this.
Yeah. All right. No worries. I'm going to go to Big Pun. Before I go to Big Pun, let me just give a quick shout out to my people in the chat. Thank you for coming through. We got Ali, Pat, Well Pilgrim. We got Goo. we got Ray Rigger. We got, I know PJ Holly was here earlier. PJ Chris, K Hernandez. And hopefully I didn't miss anybody, but much love to everybody in the chat. Much love. All right, take it away, Big Pun.
So, respecting Dave's love of Rihanna, right? So, money talks. And ultimately, Jay-Z talks. And the deal with Jay-Z coming on as a person who would bring these folks here is the idea of the whole Kaepernick thing, right? So Kaepernick was this and that. So the NFL needs to go ahead and bring it. So last year, it was black to a lot of people. To me, it was a freaking amazing to see all these people together. And I thought it was, everybody gets surprised at seeing all these actors. Look, these guys are the top of their game. And Rihanna rules the planet. I mean, aside from Bey, she rules the planet. So to be completely honest, this could be strategic. She's a new mom, right? She's going ahead and maybe she wants to come back into the fray, and she couldn't get that from the you know what I'm saying, without the anointment of the NFL. This is a big venue, man. This is a big deal. So you can go ahead and to me, did she need it? Not really, but Bey did it. So now it's like, well, get back in it. That's the deal. You can't. So you got to go ahead and remind people of your greatness. You got to remind people of who you are. And let me tell you, Rihanna's amazing. And she's a big crossover, I'm going to put that in quotations, artist, okay? So this isn't like Kendrick Lamar's coming out of somewhere and somebody in Nebraska's like, who's that? This is Rihanna. So you're good enough. So I think it's time for her to go ahead and get back on and, retake part of the throne, and all that other kind of stuff. So it's cool, and I get it. Is she a sellout? Listen, at the end of the day, I don't think that people really care. You know what I'm saying? I don't think she's that much of a militant character that people are like, oh, she's evil. Look what she said. She's anti-American. I think they want to hear Umbrella. So, you know, it's going to go down. So props to Rihanna, props to Jay for bringing people into the fray. I mean, you know, and this is what we always wanted, right? We wanted more artists that we recognize, that we love to be recognized, right? So cool. We got it.
Yeah. So I'm gonna let Dave retort, but we got some new people in the chat. Much love to Cheryl Patrick, much love to Troy that came through. And I gotta say that I'm also biased only because I'm from Barbados. My parents are actually I wasn't born in Barbados, but my parents are from Barbados. Hey. So I have to put that on the table. Let me go today.
So if the argument, and I forget if I'm messing up the year. So like Beyonce 2013. So I feel like comparing it at this point wouldn't even be fair because there's been so many people since then who've done it. And I would almost argue that because I believe Jay-Z, they announced it in like August or September of 2019 that he came on for the 2020 show. So for me, it's almost, I feel like it was more of a statement to decline in 2020 when it was because I feel like that year was when they did J-Lo and Shakira in Tampa, and it was I was jokingly call it the concert, the world-ending concert, because after that we went to quarantine. But I feel like that was such a statement to close because at that time, you know, no one knew it was about to shut down, and we were kind of in the height of this racial reckoning, and so to me, it almost was a bigger statement to be able to stop it, say no then, in a way that, given the current climate, I don't think. You're not thinking of the NFL and the whole Black Lives situation the same way. And so I think now it gives artists a little more freedom to play around. And again, I think that someone like her has an opportunity to use this platform in a way to say whatever they're wanting. Like, you know, whether it's like, hey, I'll do this, but I need you all to donate to this organization, which I think somebody did before. I'm not sure. So I'm not disagreeing with anything you said, Big Pun, per se.
Right.
I do think just the timing and the cultural shift definitely probably played a moment. And let's be honest, everyone has been begging her to do it for years. I know Taylor Swift was asked, but she didn't want to do it until she finished re-recording all her old albums so she could profit from them. But I think seeing another, and the fact that there's only been one artist announced instead of two, to see a Black woman, a Bayesian woman, you know, somebody from, I don't know if anybody from Barbados has ever done it before. This is such a, I feel like she always represents her culture in the Caribbean, that whole area in such a unique way. So to me, it's actually amazing to see what she can bring to the table and put that on the world stage. So,
all right, I think you guys, I didn't hear any like negative words about it. I didn't hear the opposite side. Let me try to give a different perspective, even though I have my bias. So I would blame more Jay-Z, if anything, because he was the one that created the initial deal. First of all, even before, when Colin Kaepernick was protesting, he was the person that was on the side and saying, hey, nobody better deal with the NFL. You know, we're all boycotting the NFL. And then he turned around and he was the one that made the deal with the NFL, with Rock Nation, and started the ball rolling. So that's where I think the fault, if there was anybody to blame, that's where the fault lies. And at that point, he started bringing on all the minority artists. And I would say that, me personally, just being honest, it's been good seeing a lot of minorities artists getting love and them getting the bag as well. But that, at the end of the day, that's capitalism too, right? We live in a capitalistic country, and that's what it is. It is what it is. All right. So
can I make a quick note? Because something that I don't think people always realize: the artists don't get paid to perform. What they look at, the trade-off is the fact that you get all this free marketing and publicity. It's exposure. I was like, and listen, I jokingly call Rihanna the Avon lady right now. So look, I'm sure Fenty Beauty gonna have booths. I'm sure that Savage Fenty gonna have a booth. And then of course, praying she's smart enough to have that album ready. Like, you'll get all that benefit, but you don't get paid to perform.
Hold on. I don't know if that's. Are you sure? Because I remember there was controversy, and then I'll let you go, Big Pun. I think there was controversy when Katy Perry, I believe, was supposed to do the Super Bowl, and they tried to get her not to pay for the first time. They wasn't going to pay her, and she was like, "No, if everybody else before me got paid, I want to get paid too." I believe. Go ahead, Big Pun.
I'm going to go ahead and say you get paid, but I'm going to go ahead and say, it ain't probably enough. And what you're doing, it's a trade-off for the exposure, right? And that's what I think it is. So, she's got a lot of things in the fire right now. She's got, like you said, she's got the Fenty and all this other stuff. So she's, this is a smart move. You got to look at it that way. Jay was not going to go ahead. Jay wants to bring the artist, but I'm sure he sold it like, listen, Bae's been here. Only the top women have been to this thing. 2 women had to share the stage one time. Well, I'm giving it to you by yourself. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. You need to come back and take this throne back. This is like, I'm pretty sure that this is the way you sold it to her. You know what I'm saying? So I don't care what she gets paid. It ain't worth what she's going to make from it. And that's what they was talking about. I think I think they cover some money, but I don't know what the fee is. I'm just saying any of these artists at this caliber will not take that fee for one night's work. I'll put it like that. I think they would.
So I found an article and it did say that Mary J. Blige, Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, Kendrick, I believe it was last year, they got paid $0. And then I saw that Jennifer Lopez and Shakira rang in at 13 million. Now I don't know I think that's the cost of like the production, like the fireworks and all that stuff. So without going too deep into it right now, sporadically, they might be right on this as far as paying the artist directly. But I think even the Weeknd's, they say he paid his own money to like make sure the production.
This is true. That the Weeknd did pay to make his production what he wanted it to be. That's correct.
But like they were saying again, his sales soared 385% in the wake of last year's performance or that year's performance. So it's definitely worth it to do it and get exposed to a whole bunch of a new fan base. All right, any last words on this topic?
In defense of Nebraska, I have gone back and heard Rihanna on the radio when I visited family. So some folks might know her.
All right, there you go.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna play the.
My bad.
Nah, no worries. We're gonna play the last clip for the night, man. We always have fun in this time. This show goes by so quickly, and man, this is becoming a pet peeve of mine. This clip right here, and I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna start off the rant on this one. All right, let's go to it.
For Ukraine.
Is there any other legislation at this point that could hitch a ride on that government funding bill? Anything else that you're watching?
Yeah, so 2 main things that we expect to see jump on that is more aid for Ukraine. The conflict there, as we know, Putin has committed to escalate, and more funding in the tune of about $12 billion.
$12 billion
support from Republicans and Democrats. It's unclear, I will note, how much longer Republicans want to continue funding this war and also funding the Ukraine government. But right now, there is money for aid on that. There is expected to be aid money on that bill. We also expect to see some money to help Jackson, Mississippi with their water crisis right now. That's one thing we're watching.
Is there any other?
Okay, so I'm glad to hear that. But if I was to bet what would last or what's going to stay in the funding bill, guess which one I would guess? The money for Ukraine over the money for Jacksonville. Unfortunately, and let me explain to people who might not know. So right now we got the war in Ukraine. We're already over 50 billion plus has already been appropriated through weapons and through various means to support the war between Ukraine and Russia. And then we have Jacksonville, who has a water issue. They haven't had water running, I think, for they were 6 or 7 days. And to this day, I don't even know if it's fully back to full function. They would turn on the faucet and you just see black, brown water come out. And so I know the mayor of that town has been in contact with the White House, and they're really trying to get something going. So that might be where this appropriation from the funding bill hopefully will go to Jackson. But my pet peeve is we spent over 60 billion. For 20 billion, we could solve homelessness for at least a year. And then you could at least build the infrastructure and it'll last longer than a year. Just for 20 billion. Then you're talking about, we just recently ended children subsidies for free food in schools. It just ended in June, I believe. Like we could, I don't even know, maybe it was like 2 billion. Maybe let's just throw that number. So why can't we keep that going? But we're now about to appropriate another $12 billion to this Ukraine effort. When you blow up a bomb and you kill somebody, it's gone. When you use $1 billion to build 10 schools, that's there for the next 60 years at the least. All right, I'm done with my rant. Let me go to Day.
I love what you said because one, continuing what you were just saying at the end, like I think it's for every $1 invested in education, you get like 7 back in a way that you don't. And I might have the conversion incorrect, but like that's not something you get from weapons of destruction. And I think what bothers me the most, I always say, pay attention to what things are bipartisan. When you're able to send money over to Ukraine, 15, 20, 30 billion, whatever the blank check is, without batting an eye. But then whenever it's used to invest in the people in America, there's so much contention that speaks volumes about where our priorities lie and where our morals lie based on what we're spending money on. And I look at it now, like, of course, you always have the caveat. No one is against helping per se Ukraine or not understanding their worthy cause. However, the money you could be using on homelessness, the money for not just Jacksonville, Flint, and thousands of other cities around the country, the fact that we have, it just to me exposes money is never the issue. We have the money. We don't have the political will or political desire from the elite class to help people, because when you can keep people desperate, when you can keep them needing, you have more power and control over them. Imagine if people weren't homeless. Imagine if people had clean drinking water. Imagine if they had financial freedom or healthcare freedom. That would then give people a level of power to usurp a lot of the people in positions of power. And that's not what people want. So it's sad to me.
Man, when you mentioned that, I have one more clip that I think we got like 4 minutes, but I just want to mention Troy put up, and I know you're using somebody else's account. It says Wendy Lord, but I know it's Troy. I don't think it's that simple. And mental health is a major issue, and you can't account for people not wanting to live in that setting. And I agree with you to agree where I said that the 20 billion could be used to solve homelessness. And from what I understand in that study that gave that number, it's accounting for a mass expansion of homeless shelters. And I understand how dangerous shelters can be. So I agree with you partially. I just think that we should see a certain amount. I would love to see 20 billion at least go towards that. You know, at least let's see them attempt at trying to solve homelessness. And then we could debate on where exactly that 20 billion should go. Let me go to David, and then I have one last clip, and we're going to head out of here.
Yeah, I have a couple of things about this. So I saw an article today about how the student loan forgiveness is going to cost around 400 billion over 10 years. So that's 40 billion a year. So I'm like, that's already less than what we've spent on the war in Ukraine. And then to your point about the school meals, one of the statewide ballot issues here in Colorado this year is actually funding school meals for every student. And the way they're going to fund it is on an income tax of households that make over $300,000 a year. And so I'm like, this is what we should be doing. If we can't get it done at the federal level, these states' rights, these states need to start implementing things themselves in order to get it done, because the federal government can't seem to do it.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, I'm gonna play this last clip.
Yeah.
Oh, no worries, no worries.
And I was gonna say, and the total cost of this meal plan is $100 million for the year, which is 1/10 of $1 billion. So, like, make it.
What is our priorities, people? The priorities. Anyway, let me play this last clip, and then I'll let Big Pun have the last word. All right.
It didn't make any sense.
Why they sending them there when we need the people here?
Help us to help the economy grow.
Dozens of asylum seekers were sent on flights from Texas to Martha's Vineyard, lured with the promise of a job. While Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis arranged the flights, business owners in his own state are struggling to find anyone to fill their open jobs.
We know that we have a massive labor shortage in Florida.
There are at least 670,000 asylum seekers in the U.S. awaiting their cases to be heard. The average wait time, 4.5 years. In the meantime, they can apply to legally work, a process that can take several months.
All right, so I'm not going to play the whole clip, but you get the idea. You got capitalists, I would call them, or business owners in Florida are like, hey, DeSantis, why you sending all those people to Martha Vineyard? And hey, we need them right here, so I could pay them $7.25 an hour, probably, to do the farmer work. But what you said, Dave, remind me of that at the end. And let me just read this last comment from Troy. He said, look at New York when they're trying to clear the homeless from the subway, but many of them don't want to go, and the rooms and buildings aren't bad. It's actually a real good looking place. Yeah. I think the homeless or the unhoused issue is very complex, more complex than we even can imagine, because I started listening to somebody that actually worked at a shelter, and there's so many various issues, mental health, people that have mental health. You have people that literally they're making the $7.25 an hour and they're working poor. Like they have a job, but they just can't afford to get an apartment, So I'm gonna Big Pun, I'm gonna give you the last word, and then we're going to head out of here.
I don't want to have the last word, but it's funny how it's like, hey, why are you sending those folks away? We want to exploit them ourselves. I mean, what is this? These guys are asylum seekers. Everyone's looking to either make a point or make a buck, and it's like, that's not what this is about. But we lose sight of that. But it's not shocking if we're going ahead and sending money to kill people, as opposed to go ahead and help anyone here, even those that are coming here for asylum. So, it's a horrible taste in everyone's mouth with this whole thing of like, let me go ahead and ship humans, right? Let me traffic humans somewhere to make a point. I mean, it's the most horrible and egregious thing in the world. And at the end of the day, it's falls flat, and you look bad, and we all look bad, to be honest with you, because wherever we send them to, are like, here's some towels and here's some stuff, and thanks for coming, and bye-bye. So unless we put people to work, this isn't good. This is horrible. So on both sides, on every side, this is like a horrible situation, and I it's just bad. It's bad. So the thought that you think you can make a point and it's cool, and whatever it is, nah, man, bad stuff.
Not 100%. So I'm going to solve the issue right now. Have legislation for every dollar that you send overseas, you have to spend $1 domestically.
3.
Oh, 3.
At least 3.
Let's do it, because the corporatists are going to negotiate it down. The Joe Mansions are going to negotiate it back to 1 anyway. All right. Much love to everybody. Thank you for coming through. Let me shout out the chat one more time. Cheryl, Patrick, PJ, Holly was in the building. PJ, Chris, Troy was in the building. Thank you, everybody. Ali Pat was in the building. Thank you so much for coming through, Ray. I appreciate it. And I'm going to shout out the Patreon members. And I want to thank Nancy Vancher, Deborah B, PJ Krish, Akibasha Kita, Zachary Guston, Shanika Thompson. Thank you for coming through. And Word Program was in the chat as well. Thank you for coming through, everybody. All right, last words. We're going to be taking a hiatus for a month. October's my birthday month, and I need a break. But we're going to come back in time for the midterms. November probably, is Tuesday. So probably the Monday we'll come back and do a show. And I'm hoping that we get all the original guys, and even David, Big Pun, and Day. I'm going to try to get we're going to have like 10 people in the chat one time. A big melee is going to be fun. And we're going to try to get that going. So last words, David, let me go to you first as we head out.
Thanks for having me back. It's always fun chatting with you guys, and I enjoyed hearing from Brooke too. So thank you. And
awesome.
Happy early birthday.
Thank you so much. Big Pun.
Happy birthday, my brother. Hope you have a good one. Not much deserved month off. We'll get back when everything gets hot and bring everybody back, and that'll be cool. Shout out to David Day and everybody else in the chat. And Brooke, thanks for coming on. That was awesome.
Yeah. And Day.
Yes, happy early birthday. Listen, I'm gonna miss you all, but that means we're gonna have so much more to chat about
when we come back
together.
Yeah.
And big ups to my friend Eve for watching tonight as well. So you guys are amazing. I miss y'all.
Thank you, E, for coming through. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and I appreciate that. Thank you for coming through. See you in 4 weeks. Much love. Adios, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Much love to my BHN people out there.